we're working with a plastic recycler, and they actually have a certificate to export plastic into China. Basically, we're going to be giving them plastic. They treat it, they sort it, they actually bundle it up in all the different plastic categories, clean, and then they ship it off to China. That can be used as a raw material. And so there's a market for it. It's just about whether there's the ability to process it in a good way. Just don't give them all your garbage, give them actual real raw materials.
Yeah, but I think a big part of it is because China has been so low cost and efficient in the recycling industry. Basically, Hong Kong has had no reason to develop its own. Because even now, paper, metal, all of the stuff you recycle in Hong Kong, 95% of it gets exported to China. Scrap buyers in China. So because of that, they have the scale, they have the low cost to process all this stuff. So Hong Kong has never needed to do this until now. So now that you see the policy change, you see plastic processing plants are starting to sprout up in Hong Kong. We're working with one that's just sprouting up in the coming month. There's another big plastic factory. It's getting set up in another 2 years. Glass finally got set up. I mean, these things are sprouting up now because there's a need, but previously it was just so easy to just ship everything off to China, let them deal with it.
Well, one of the big things is that, so manufacturing in China, the cost of manufacturing is increasing. The reason why we're able to export, the reality is, it's not just Hong Kong, it's actually the rest of the world. Most of the world's garbage, a lot of the world's garbage actually goes to China to get sorted and reused or something. Now, the reason is because labor in China is really cheap, and literally it's the person there sorting through all the stuff and, taking things out. Labor is really cheap. Now that labor is increasing, well, it's a lot more expensive to do the whole entire processing. So that's why they don't want your garbage anymore, because it's a lot of money. First of all, they're going to end up throwing it away anyway, half of it. So it's a cost issue. So but if they get like real clean plastic, then they can use it. And this is why Hong Kong's actually starting to set this up, is because it's going to be expensive to do it anyway, so they might as well do it locally. And Hong Kong's not the only one. Taiwan is doing it, China's doing it. We heard people like Indonesia, like all over the world people are doing it. It's just a matter of when the cost centers. So, are there any other questions, or should I start taking questions?
How do you convince your customers that their waste are actually recycled? How can they tell? Well, when as soon as they leave their homes, they could be dumped somewhere along the roadside, or could be properly recycled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, one of the big things that we pride ourselves on, HK Recycles pride ourselves on, is that we do recycling. We do it 100%. We actually 100% recycle it. Now, how we do it, we're actually very transparent with it. We tell people that we are working with private recyclers for paper, metals, and plastic and glass. We work with governments. Now, the reason why we work with private people is because there's a financial incentive for them to actually recycle it. And for plastic and glass, you give it to the government, well, it's the government. And so, those are the best channels that we do it. And so, that's our commitment to our members. One of the good things is that we are looking into getting a third-party audit, just to give us a little more credibility. But for now, we stand by our statements and say we are 100% recycled.
Yeah, we keep records of everything we recycle, so we have hard numbers for everything we do. And people, they see our collectors come, they see us actually pick up each bag separately, keep everything sorted. It does help that we're small at the moment, and we can add a more personal touch to everything we do. So they know that we're in this not for the money, because it's just 20, 25. We're in it because we're focused on getting this stuff recycled. So that's a big core part of our message.
That's actually a really good point, is that when I pulled out that number, we recycled over 50,000 pounds. It's actually more now. But the reason we know that is because we actually have paper records of how much we recycle. On a daily, weekly basis, our guys are emailing us, the recycling partners, are saying, oh, you have submitted this many pounds of recyclable material, which is great. Personally, I like seeing, because that means oh, it's cool. There's more to be recycled. So, questions?
One of my friends actually know someone who works in waste system in Hong Kong, and he actually told me a long time ago that I shouldn't bother to throw anything into recycle bins, the colored ones in Hong Kong, because in the very end, they all throw them into one category. Is that true? And how do you guys prevent that from happening? Or do you guys prevent that from happening, or is it something separate?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard that from a lot of people. And the problem is, look, you can't actually recycle anything if it's mixed together in Hong Kong. So if you see those government bins and it says plastic or metal, I mean, if you ever put your plastic bottle in there and as you look in, you'll see trash. You'll see, and if there's food in the bottle, if they're not mixed and if it's not clean, it's almost impossible to recycle, especially in Hong Kong where they do not sort anything. So we experienced that firsthand when we were doing, have you guys heard of Clockenflap? It's one of the big music festivals. We've been the recycling partner for Clockenflap the past 2 years. So the first year we did, we were very excited. We're like, yes, we're going to recycle everything. Then we realized, I mean, we put bins out there, but the minute someone throws a newspaper into the plastic bin or someone throws a burger into the plastic bin, everything's spoiled. It's almost impossible to recycle at that point because things are contaminated or they're not sorted. So you can imagine all the government bins out there, they're mixed up or they're contaminated. So a lot of it will not be recycled. And the company that is contracted to do this, I mean, they just collect everything anyway, and there's very little accountability on that regard, part of the government. I mean, officially we don't say anything because, I mean, officially we don't know, but just from anecdotally and just from our personal experience, we would be very surprised if those public government bins are actually recycled. And the same goes with many housing estates, where you have ground floor bins for everything. Just because, again, if anything gets mixed up or things get contaminated, it's over. So how do we do it? Well, our residential is actually individual unit. So every family is in charge of their own recycling bags. They sort it themselves. We keep everything sorted. And if they have like a wine bottle or a plastic bottle, we ask them to rinse it out. Similar to anywhere, like in North America or Europe, you rinse it out before you throw it out. We get them to do that. So there's an education process here. It is a bit more manual, but that's what we have to do until the technology gets to the point where we have machines that can sort everything. So unfortunately, I mean, even that 14%, I mean, that's based on the government recycling a lot of these things. Yeah.
So it seems to me like you guys have almost like a retail type reverse supply chain, one by one by one. I mean, how can you create a wholesale? Yeah, I saw you guys on watch that, so I'm just wondering, like, can't you just vacuum up everything that's coming out of those bars, all the glass coming out of there, all the plastic cups, or however they're served? It's like, have you had those discussions, like hotels, bars, restaurants that are kicking out in volume?
So besides individual residential homes, we do work with several companies that do their whole entire building. So we do that now with a couple of people, but in the next year, in 2014, that's actually one of our big missions, is to work directly with property management companies to say, hey, we want your whole building, and this is why. 50% of your waste gets reduced and you do recycling. Give us your building so we can do your recycling. That's a huge thing. And that's, not just from like a goodwill thing. That's great. I mean, think about the press. It's like you say, oh yeah, this building is 50% recycled. That's awesome. And so that's a huge service that you do in Hong Kong. So we are talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big goal of ours, but the fact of the matter was, when we first started, I mean, you're not going to get a whole building to sign up with this relatively unknown company, right? So we decided we start small. We start with the residential and select corporates, and those people have become our ambassadors to spread the word of mouth to the point where we have property managers contacting us, maybe because they have residents that use our service that are demanding this. So, I mean, we're scaling up to the point where we can do full buildings, restaurants, and whatnot.
One of the things, one interesting things that I actually had a conversation today with a property management company. I was asking her, I was like, hey, we were just talking about her experience. I was like, oh, how did you end up signing up with us anyway? And she says, oh, well, the residents kept asking me about you guys. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then she said, yeah, besides that, within my own social circle, people kept talking about you guys. And so it was like the property management company is getting from both ends, friends as well as their customers. It's like, hey, you guys got used to HK cycles. And we're hoping to get these type of conversations with property management companies. You know, the ambassador program is a huge thing. And so we're actually contacting our existing members and say, hey, can you guys sign up one neighbor out of your building that has 100 apartments? Just get one guy. Just get one guy to sign up. That would be a huge help. You know, if we can do that, we've essentially just doubled our business. You know? So one person at a time, double, triple, quadruple, all that stuff. Any other questions?
Any questions for Henry? Henry, how are your parents taking your new life?
Okay, it's actually quite a sensitive question because yeah, actually I moved out. I'm living alone now. They're actually quite supportive because given the fact that I was a bad student, I was like doing all this kind of bad stuff. They maybe they got used to it already and say like, okay, just let it be. Yes.
I'll actually add to that one. So I've told my parents that I do this, and they said I'm a garbage man now, and they don't tell any of their friends that I'm a garbage man.
Actually, after 6 years of doing my own business, my parents were very happy to know that I became a professor because they could finally tell people what I do. I'm a professor. And then, before that it was, well, don't do anything that sacrifices your day job. Because I started a charity called Hands On. So you may know Hands On Hong Kong, Hands On Shanghai, Hong Kong, Beijing. And it takes a while as the entrepreneur in the family, even though I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs in my family. It was far more successful. So, any more questions? I mean, for me, what's interesting is I was having, you had the Social Innovation Summit this week. I'll give your gifts in here in a second. And what I came to find out was a friend of mine who I've known for a while. Her uncle now is one of 8 people overseeing the waste strategy in Hong Kong, Bertie Chan. And so the city is now very interested in seeing what's going on outside of the policies, outside of the existing supply chain. Because what you don't really, in Shanghai we have the same problem, and in Beijing you see the same thing. Singapore is very different because they started to realize that there's value in waste at the city level. To actually take this stuff, you need to double the trucks. You need to do a lot of training. You need different facilities. Unless, of course, you have entrepreneurs starting to set this stuff up. So what we're starting to see now is where, with the fund and things like that, entrepreneurs have the ability to actually access government money now as service providers to the government to fix these problems, which is something that the hippies in the States did, which is something you're seeing quite a bit of in China. And so I think these are kind of the disruptors in these systems that are starting to fail. So thank you very much to the 3 of you. You have 3 gifts. They're not recycled. Just use them until they die, and then find a new life for them. And then you give him the box so they can recycle. So thank you very much. We come back every 3 months, and next time we will talk about actually how small and medium-sized businesses, as well as a couple large ones, have been changing their business model from one that went from comply to contribute. If you have more questions and you just want to ask them directly, feel free to come on up. Otherwise, thank you very much. Have a great week, and we'll see you in a few months. And thank you again, Rena.
Thanks a lot for coming.
Finish the cookies.
Okay.
Thank you.